It's been over 7 years since the original release of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, and as far as we are concerned, it's still unmatched in the modern role-playing space. If anything, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt Complete Edition is a poignant reminder that many of the bars CD Projekt Red set back in 2015 have yet to be topped. Geralt's adventures across the Northern Realms are just as engrossing now as they were back then, with the game's spectacular character writing, superb world building and high quality questing all but in a league of their own. There is plenty to cover in this long-awaited PS5 upgrade, so let's delve right into our Witcher 3 Next Gen review. Before we give the whole review away, let's go over what the Complete Edition actually is. This is an enhanced PS5 re-release of The Witcher 3 and its two expansions, Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine. You're going to need to own both of these expansions already if you want to upgrade them for free on current gen consoles. It's essentially a remaster then, with updated visuals and boosted performance, but it also throws in a bunch of gameplay tweaks which help improve the overall experience. Plus, there's a photo mode now. Graphically, the Complete Edition is a welcome leap forward. You may not notice the enhancements right away, especially if you haven't touched The Witcher 3 in quite some time, but putting the PS4 and PS5 versions side by side reveal a raft of improvements, particularly in those finer details. The draw distances in particular are far better, and higher resolution textures are plastered all over the place. Grasses are denser, the world lighting is more dynamic, and there are even new weather effects. It all looks lovely. This PS5 port features two graphical modes, those being your usual quality and performance options. Both maintain that crisp checkerboard 4K resolution, which is great to see, but quality is capped at 30 frames per second, while performance pushes things to 60. Needless to say that 60 FPS can make a significant difference when it comes to combat, but for once, we'd actually encourage you to at least try out the quality settings. That's because they enable ray tracing, which can really make the visuals pop with enhanced reflections, both on water and the surfaces of shiny objects like windows and armour. Again, the 30 FPS cap is a kicker, but if you want to see The Witcher 3 at its absolute best on console, even just for a few minutes, it's well worth flicking the switch. Although, maybe just take things slow while you're doing so. Now then, on to gameplay improvements. At its core, the title's gameplay remains unchanged. That somewhat divisive combat system is the same as it's always been, and main character Geralt's movement is still a little jank. However, the performance mode's 60 FPS boost does make a big difference, all but eliminating the slight input lag that was present in the PS4 release. The increased responsiveness alone makes the PS5 edition feel far better to play. The new quick cast option certainly helps in this regard too. You can now just hold down R2 and press a corresponding face button to unleash Geralt's magical signs in battle. Previously, you had to open a full radial menu to switch between signs, which gave combat a tactical but ultimately disjointed flow. Another welcome improvement though is that you can still use this radial wheel in conjunction with the real-time settings. Then you've got the new camera mode, which lets you place the camera much closer to Geralt, just next to his right shoulder. In the original, the default camera was awkwardly positioned. It had Geralt almost slap bang in the middle of the screen, and this meant that if you wanted to interact with objects, you often had to lift the camera above Geralt's head and look down at the environment in a finicky fashion. With the new and default close camera, this is obviously no longer an issue, and as such we'd highly recommend using it. Particularly in those tight spaces, it makes a massive difference. It might seem like a small addition, but a shift in perspective can have a profound impact on how a game's world is perceived. Now, we wouldn't go as far as saying that the new camera is transformative, but it does give the title a more cinematic quality. Simply put, it's much easier to appreciate the fantastic artistry and the impressive scale of The Witcher 3's setting when Geralt isn't standing right in the middle of the screen. The closed camera can be used for combat as well, its own separate setting in the options menu, but it's harder to recommend. In battle, having a narrower field of view means that you're going to want to keep all of your enemies front and centre, which is easier said than done when you've got jumpy ghouls darting around the arena. The old camera arguably works better here as it zooms out a bit to give you a wider view of the action. It's not surprising, but thanks to all these additions and improvements, Complete Edition is the best version of The Witcher 3 on PlayStation. And that's without mentioning the new content, which includes weapons, armors, and a new quest inspired by The Witcher on Netflix. Said quest is actually really good, a lengthy escapade that takes place within one of the game's barely utilised locations. Now, we're not going to spoil anything here, but the level of quality is up there with some of The Witcher 3's finest excursions, and that's high praise. CD Projekt Red didn't need to inject this much effort into a one-off quest in a free upgrade, but it did, and it's well worth checking out. With all of the new stuff out of the way, we wanted to quickly reflect on what makes The Witcher 3 such a landmark RPG. As mentioned, it's the writing that solidifies its place near the top of the pantheon. The dialogue is, for the most part, immaculately crafted, packed with charm and wit, without ever being overbearing in its exposition. It's the kind of writing that draws you into a fantastical world and makes it feel shockingly grounded. The game's overall tone is masterfully balanced as well. The Witcher's world is relentlessly grim, especially if you are one of the hapless peasants that explores its environment, but an excellent sense of dark humour prevents proceedings from becoming needlessly miserable. Meanwhile, the side quests are often held aloft as the best to ever grace a video game, and it's easy to see why. The vast majority of completely optional adventures are deeply engaging because of the sharp storytelling that surrounds them. The Witcher 3's best assets have aged incredibly well. Not that a genuinely great script will ever truly be dulled, but you know what we're getting at. There are aspects of the game that haven't quite stood the test of time though. We are, perhaps predictably, talking about the combat system. Even with the benefits of 60 FPS, there's no getting away from the fact that fighting can feel unwieldy due to the overly elaborate animations and some dodgy target tracking. It's still enjoyable when you're unleashing signs and spinning between foes, and the power fantasy of being a veteran monster killing machine kicks in at the later levels, but it can be a difficult obstacle to overcome until you're used to the game's slightly awkward rhythm. It's a shame that combat remains untouched in this update, but we understand that CD Projekt Red didn't want to alter its most beloved game on a fundamental level. But hey, the developer did go the extra mile and implement full DualSense controller support on PlayStation 5. The haptic feedback is top notch, offering a range of rumbles whether you're galloping across the countryside or slamming your sword into some ugly creature. Adaptive triggers are also an option, and as long as you don't mind exerting the additional effort, they're put to use quite nicely when firing your crossbow or letting loose with everyone's favourite sign, Igni. Over 7 years after its original release, The Witcher 3 is still a masterpiece. In its character writing and dialogue, it's yet to be surpassed, while its knack for telling so many engrossing tales is still seriously impressive. Although some aspects of its gameplay haven't aged quite so well, there's no doubt that the complete edition is the best version of a truly outstanding open world adventure. And that is our review for The Witcher 3 on PlayStation 5. Let us know if you plan on revisiting this RPG classic and your general impressions on the next gen update. We've also got a side-by-side comparison and 4K gameplay for you to check out if you're still on the fence. As always, remember to like the video and subscribe to us here on Push Square for more news, reviews, guides and beyond, all within the world of PlayStation. Anyway, I'll catch you next time.